So, hello there. My name's Fraser Kennedy. I'm from a company called Croner. And today we're doing a special bite-sized session, especially for UMi members on recruitment and to try and give you the best quick tip to make it as easy and as successful as possible for you. Um, as I've mentioned, I work for Croner. I've worked for Croner for about 4 or 5 years now, and I've worked through all the different litigation departments. And now I look after the team that look after UMi members for HR and health and safety advice. So, as it says on the slide there, we're expecting it to be about 20-minute runtime today, so nice and quick. Um, Before we jump into the content, it's just a gentle reminder of how to access the benefit of Croner. As a UMi member, you get access to Croner on a complimentary basis, and you can get free employment law, health and safety, and commercial legal support. All of those elements are from the very, very small questions and queries all the way through to things that might be quite serious or even litigious. Give us a call on that number at the bottom of the screen there. All you need to say is that you're calling from UMi. We'll take a few details from you and then you can access that support nice and quickly. But before further ado, we'll just get straight into the session. Now, I want to start with job descriptions, and the reason I like to start with that is because I think this element is kind of forgotten about, I think, sometimes in the modern world. Job descriptions outline and paint, I suppose, the role that you're looking to fill and the type of person that you want to fill that role. And that might sound really obvious, but as we go through today's session, you'll understand why it's so important that from the outset to clearly outline what the job is and what the kind of person that you're looking for is. It will build you a foundation for your interviews, your scoring, and ultimately why you might be choosing one person over another. Now, where possible, I always like to see when I'm helping my clients with these kinds of tasks, are very, very clinical and clear expectations of what the role might be. So you can see on the slide there, you might even have seen job specs before that say things like a good team player or good communication skills. Put them into context, put them into reality. What does a day in the life literally look like in that role? Okay. It might sound blindingly obvious, but what that will mean for you is you getting people that are actually applying for the job that understand it and actually want the job. So you won't be wasting your own time interviewing people that actually, when they understand the job maybe a little bit better and a bit more clarity, they decide they don't want to proceed with that recruitment process anymore. It's also a fantastic opportunity to highlight your values and your culture and why you're such a brilliant employer. Again, all of these things might sound blindingly obvious, but if you're not telling candidates this from the outset and the word go, you're not going to attract the people that maybe you want, and vice versa. They might be applying for a role that they might not want. Excuse me. Ultimately, you want a nice streamlined process to get the right people in front of you as quickly as possible, so you can fill that role and operationally you're as efficient as you can be. So there's loads of different ways of sourcing candidates in the modern world now. Now, the most common way of searching for people is digital sourcing. So this is via job boards, via Indeed, websites like that. Social media, LinkedIn is a fantastic way of finding professionals in your industry. There's also, obviously you can have career pages. I appreciate if you're maybe a slightly smaller company, you might not have that facility on your website to do that. There's other methods that I probably consider to be a little bit more traditional, if you like, which might be networking or even referrals from your current employees. I know lots of companies that I've worked with on a kind of feet on the ground level where they've had good staff that have been promoted quickly and have taken on responsibility quite quickly once coming into the business. Referrals from those individuals are like gold dust. Okay, if you've got people that are good eggs and hard workers, they'll want to make sure that they're bringing in someone that's just as a hard worker and just as a top performer as they are. Okay, so I wouldn't be afraid of approaching your current staff about any kind of people they might think might be suitable to join the business. Attending job fairs or industry events is again a bit of a slept on kind of method of recruitment. Where in reality, it's almost a bit like recruitment speed dating, because you can speak to people even for just a 5-10 minute kind of really quite a top line conversation about maybe what the company does and what they do, or maybe what role they're looking for, or whatever it might be, I'm not sure. And at least then you'll already get a bit of a feel, is this person going to be someone that we want to speak to again? Is it someone we might want to interview, or is it maybe not the right time for that kind of person or that kind of role? And naturally, of course, you can look at recruitment agencies when required. They can be very, very expensive, is all I will say about them. And on a commercial level, I'd be quite careful about, if you're entering into contractual arrangements with recruitment companies, how it works if when they supply someone to you and you take them on and they don't turn out to be maybe the best fit as we maybe originally thought. Again, these recruitment companies, whilst they mostly do a fantastic job, they expect quite high fees. So naturally, for smaller businesses, I could understand why you might be a bit anxious about engaging with a recruitment company, especially on a longer term or a subscription term contract, because again, they charge quite large fees for finding these individuals, and ultimately you're taking on all the risk of the product that they're supplying, which is a human being being delivered into your workplace. So I naturally would tend to lean towards more of the digital ones initially, because they're the least effort, and usually highest yield. But again, I wouldn't be shy from any kind of job fairs or industry events. Like I say, it's a brilliant opportunity for you to just have a quick chat with people without really committing to the whole interview kind of process. So we've done the job spec. We've hopefully got a few candidates kind of applying. We're going to have to look at a process now to work out who the strongest candidates are going to be. Okay. Normally this is an interview process. There's no laws around interviews on the top line anyway, so don't be worried about taking your own approach to it or your own spin to it. You'll know some people do one stage, a two stage, a three stage, and whatever. It's completely up to you how you want to do it. Naturally, the more rigorous the process, theoretically, the better candidate you should get at the end of it. If you're testing them on multiple times and multiple different facets and factors, you're more likely to get somebody that's probably going to be a better fit than maybe a half an hour quick kind of chat over a cup of coffee. What I would do is try and ask as many open questions as you can. Give them the opportunity to display their experience and attribute elements that you've raised in that job spec that we discussed right at the start to how experienced they are and maybe what they could even bring to the company themselves. There's some examples of some questions on there. They're probably quite typical ones that you might have already used. Again, think outside the box with this. Think about the specific role. What kind of characteristics do you need that person to have? Okay, do they need to be good communicators to discuss, be able to present at board level, to people that they've never met, or even present to 50 or 60 people that they've never met before? Explain the time that you've done that and you've done it well. Something like that would be a good question to apply the job spec and the context behind it, rather than just asking them if they're a good communicator or something like that. The main thing I'd like you to remember from today is that bottom part there. Okay, so taking structured notes of your interviews so you can fairly compare candidates later. Okay, this is such an important part. Okay, and the reason it's so important is because even though someone doesn't work for you, they can still litigate against you if they feel like they've been discriminated against under the Equality Act. Okay. The reason structured notes are so important is because you've got a representation of who said what in that meeting, or even better, when I interview candidates, I even comment myself on if I think that question was answered well and why, or if I didn't think the question was answered well, why I felt that way. Okay. The reason that's so significant is because normally candidates don't take notes in interview processes. It's all about what the employer's got and the evidence of that conversation. And we want to be very, very clear what questions we asked and why we asked them, what the answers were, and what we thought of those answers. Don't be afraid to critique people live and direct in front of them. If you don't think someone's answered a question well, make a note of it and make a note to yourself why that was. Okay. The reason it can be a risk not to do that is because if someone says, I don't think I got the job because I'm a woman, or because I'm a certain race, religion, or gender, or sexuality, or whatever it might be, if you've got no notes to say, well, no, actually, it's because when I asked you about your experience of communication and presenting to the board and presenting to 50 or 60 people, you said that you'd never done that before and you thought it actually, you're not sure if that would be a good thing for you to do. Naturally, that's why we didn't give you the job. It's nothing to do about anything to do with your characteristics, because we're looking for someone that can do that, and it was probably quite clear that that's not something that maybe you're very competent at. Okay, That's why that element is so important. Okay, so if you're going to remember one thing, write down what you're asking people and write down what they say and write down what your thoughts are. Okay, they might never see those notes, so don't be harsh. Don't be afraid to be critical of people. That's the whole point of the process. Structuring the interviews again, make sure that generally speaking, I don't think you need to be too rigid on this, of course, because conversation has its ebbs and its flows and its nuances, of course it does. But have a core set of questions that you ask every single candidate. Okay, a core set. That means even if it's only 4 or 5, you've got that technique before they go, right, well, I got my questions from the job spec that I did first, and I got all the important skills, and then I formulated that into questions, and then I asked all of those 5 questions. I asked more, of course, because they started talking about other experiences that I thought was quite interesting. So I did ask them about that, but I did primarily ask them these 5 questions, and this is how they got on. Okay. If you want to score them in terms of numbering, say, I thought that answer was a 4 out of 5 for these reasons, absolutely fine. No worries at all. That is far better than just saying, just putting down just what they said and no comment or critique. Okay. Because again, that is up for interpretation at that point. Okay. You want to be very, very, very clear. Almost imagine that you're standing in front of a judge and explaining why we didn't hire that person. That's how I try and think about it. It might sound a little bit heavy-handed, but that's essentially how you protect yourself from these kind of situations. Okay, having 2 people there again is another reasonable step to take. It's not an essential step, of course, but it's a reasonable step to take to make sure there's no personal bias there, or we're not skipping over a question or something like that. I'm not sure. It's just another mind to make sure that we're, as an employer, ticking those boxes to make sure that if there's any issues down the line, we've got the evidence to kind of produce why we just justify our decision making. Okay. You could go the extra step and do unconscious bias training, which again, it is an element of psychology that we're all vulnerable to, and unfortunately, being aware of it naturally can reduce the likelihood of it happening. Again, it's something that we have softwares, like you see the logo of Bright HR behind me. They have training on there about that you could potentially give to your managers to help them understand that, oh, I might have actually, kind of misunderstood their answer, or didn't ask the question appropriately, or something like that. I'm not sure. But it's just all in the same vein to make sure it's a fair assessment technique. So if it ever got challenged, you'd be able to prove your innocence, and also you get the best candidate out the bottom end of the pipeline. Onboarding. Now, onboarding isn't just a fancy buzzword that the corporate giants use to get people in and get them straight to work immediately. It's a very, very, very important stage for an employee life cycle generally. In my tenure, in my job that I've been doing for Croner for the past number of years, the most likely person to quit is someone that's in their probation. That is the demographic of employee that's most likely to leave is someone that's within 6 months service. Okay. Now, obviously, we've talked about the time investment of recruitment processes. We've talked about the cost investment of recruitment processes if you're using an agency. If you've got someone and you think they're good, they're going to be a good fit, you want them to stay. Naturally, it sounds obvious, doesn't it, right? But ultimately, a nice, clear onboard structure. I like to have, when I hire people, like a 2-week timetable that's very, very clearly defined who they're going to be sitting with, what they're going to be talking about, what they're going to be shown, X, Y, Z, who they're going to be shadowing, and what they're expected to kind of achieve from that shadowing. It's a bit of extra admin, it's a bit of extra kind of time, but it's an investment in this person. Okay, it's an investment in that money that you spent recruiting. It's an investment in your own time that you've spent going to these job fairs or going on Indeed or LinkedIn and surveying all these CVs. The more clearly you define the expectations, the metrics, the hows, the who's, the wheres, the more likely that person is to engage with the workplace and build confidence in the workplace and confidence in you as a manager as well, which obviously is massively important. You want to embed them in your culture as quickly as possible. So sit them with your best performers, sit them with operational leaders that know all the nooks and crannies and nuances of how this business ticks. All of those are key steps, so they know who to go to if they've got a problem with one department or whatever it might be. I'm not sure. Try and plan that as best you can. Okay, so they have a successful start, so they're not falling into that demographic of individuals that fall away. Okay, they lose interest, they lose cognition with the what's expected of them and the role and all that kind of stuff. Make sure you're giving them the best chance of retaining them. Like I say, investment in your time and investment in your own money that you might have already spent recruiting this individual. Sounds obvious, doesn't it? Be welcoming. Again, like I've said, when you sit them with those people, those business leaders, these are people that are proud to wave the flag of your business. It might even be yourself, the MD, it might be board level people that you sit them with. Again, these are people that care about the company. Okay. That will all have hired people in the past, and me included in this, that don't they just don't care. They don't care about what the company or the department's trying to achieve. Those people are going to exist and it's going to happen. Try and make sure if you've got new hires, you're sitting them with people again that are leaders, okay, that care, that have got skin in the game, okay. They're going to help, encourage this person and give them a bit of fire in their belly to make a difference, okay. Like I said earlier, welcome packs are a really, really nice way to kind of introduce someone, a tangible asset to give them on day one. In the past, what I've done as well is after I've interviewed them about 2 weeks before I've sent them a postcard, basically it's just a postcard that's got our logo on it that says can't wait for you to start. Again, it's a nice something tangible that goes through their front door and they think, oh, do you know what, yeah, I'm really excited to get started at wherever it is I'm starting. We've talked about the structured onboarding timetable already. I've skipped ahead a little bit there, apologies. And assigning those buddies, the last bit, and what I see all the time, and again, I usually deal with the nasty cases, unfortunately, that are where we've got ACAS involved and all that kind of stuff. Regular check-ins, right? Plan them in your diary. That's the first step. Actually do them is the second bit, and that's the harder part. And I know that from experience. I've managed people for many, many years now, and I know that sometimes things change, priorities change. I totally understand that. I totally get that. Diarize them and try and stick to them to the best that you can. Make notes in those one-to-one meetings as well. If you've got worries about them, it's an open forum for you to share them and help them understand how you're going to support them and build them up to where they need to be. Also for them, if they're saying, you know what, I'm actually really struggling with the software, or I'm really struggling understanding why clients are saying this, it's a forum and it's an opportunity to discuss that in private, which people might not be comfortable doing outside of that situation. Okay. How regularly you want that to be is completely up to you. You can do it weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly if you want to. I'd suggest doing it in some capacity though. Again, it's going to give you a nice feel as well of where they are in their probationary period. If you want to move on with a pass, or if you're thinking actually we're going to extend and maybe give you a bit more training and support to get you where we want you to be, or if unfortunately you're thinking, I'm not seeing the right signs here, we might have to move on here and have a bit of a slightly different conversation. But all of those elements there should help give you the best opportunity of retaining those new candidates, which ultimately anyone who's working operations before or running a business wants to retain staff that they've spent time and potentially money hiring. Otherwise, we're just throwing time and money down the drain. If you're not sure who we are, we support small employers mainly. The client base I mainly look after are less than 15 employees, so small businesses. We don't work in any kind of verticals. We work for every type of company you can ever imagine, from accountants all the way through to free-range egg farmers and everyone in between. Okay. Ultimately, what we look to try and do is safeguard your business. Employment law is what we've talked about today. We also work on health and safety as well. Some lovely metrics for you there. We've got about 14,000 clients in the UK at the minute, a brilliant tribunal success rate. We've been around a long time, and as you can see, we're dead busy. It's over 300,000 advice calls per year. And luckily, we've been in a position where we've been growing year on year for about the past 4 or 5 years. So we're getting bigger and bigger, busier and busier, and learning a lot more about smaller businesses and how we can support them. The next steps off the back of this, what I'd encourage you to do is, if you have any questions, get them answered by an expert. Don't use ChatGPT. I've already seen some car crashes from AI. It's not been around that long, but we've already seen some problems with it. You're an UMi member. You don't need to go out and pay for it. You can call the number that will be on the next slide and speak to someone in my team who's either going to be an ex-practicing solicitor or level 7 CIPD. So they're experienced people that are used to advising smaller companies on things like recruitment. Okay. You can have a free review of your HR policies and your health and safety programs. If you're attending today's session, no problem at all. We can get you booked in for that. What you'll need to do is, you've got recruitment policies. That's probably the most relevant thing to today's session, and also employment contracts. We can give you a bit of a feel of where they are in terms of compliance. And if you want to take that information and go and speak to whoever about it, no worries at all. But we can at least give you that sense of direction and sense of travel with those documents to make sure you are comfortable, you're aware of at least where you are, so you can make informed decisions of whatever the next steps might be. You might have one of my consultants give you a call in the next couple of days. Again, these are trained HR people, so they're just reaching out just to give you that support, remind you that we're there. And if you've got any questions about today's session or anything to do with HR employment law, they'll be more than happy to support you with that. I think we're about sticking to time. I hope that was helpful. If there's any questions, my email is there, so if you want to come to me directly, feel free. And also that telephone number, me and my team will be reachable on that phone number there. So feel free to give us a call, no matter how big or small the question. Like I say, we're here to support UMi members as part of your membership already. So I'd encourage anybody to at least use us. We've got the guys waiting here ready to take your call. So give us a call and we can have a chat about things. But have a nice day and thanks for listening. Bye bye.